What is up, Facebook land? Welcome to another episode of the Two Dates and a Dash podcast. I'm your host, Matt Cubbler, and before I introduce my special guest, Joe Battista, I want to first dedicate the show, as I always do every week. This week, I'm going to dedicate this show to my wife. Lauren is the rock of this family. She is the only person that manages my life and my schedule, my kids' life and their schedule. Make sure they eat and I eat, and that we have a clean house and a warm smile and an open heart to come home to. So without her, I'd probably be homeless, starving, and I certainly wouldn't have kids that are still alive. I probably would have screwed that up early on. So this show is dedicated to my lovely wife, Lauren, who I love very much. The podcast, where can you find it? You can find it everywhere there's a podcast. iTunes, Stitcher, Applecast, Anchor, wherever you want to find it, it's there. So a little bit about my buddy Joe Battista. So Joe is, we met at a very odd place. It was an event in New Jersey for Aaron Beasley, who I grew up with, and Joe was there as one of the people that was in attendance, and we got connected. And next thing you know, we're having coffee in Collegeville and became good friends. And he is just a really diverse, deep, backgrounded kind of guy. He was a hockey coach at Penn State when it was a club hockey and helped create it into a varsity program. He helped to secure $88 million donation that helped to create the program and the arena and everything else that goes with that. He was the vice president of hockey and business operations for Buffalo Sabres. He is the author of an amazing book called Pragmatic Passion. He's a speaker, mentor, and still involved in the world of hockey. So without further ado, my buddy Joe Battista. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, Matt. It's always a pleasure to see you and hear you. And I like your office there. You got a lot of good stuff hanging on the walls there.
Yeah, it's one of the benefits of having been in a bodyguard for many years. I tend to collect jerseys. So.
Well, mine's not quite like that. Although I do all right. I've got an NHL collection in the basement that has a Mario Lemieux, a Bobby Hull, a Bobby Orr, Wayne Gretzky, Dominic Hasek, Sid Crosby. So I'm doing all right.
Well, you don't have to brag, dude. Just because you got literally the entire great. If you put all them together, they would be the greatest hockey team ever.
That's my Hall of Fame man cave there. So that's
those championship rings over your shoulder there.
Yes, those are our national championship rings. We won 6 club American Collegiate Hockey Association national championships. I was blessed with a lot of great players who made me look like a great coach. So I have nothing but great things to say about the young men that I had the honor and the privilege to coach.
So, I don't know how many of my episodes you've seen, but I don't plan my shows.
Sure.
I try to keep it as free flowing and organic and just see where the hell it goes. So the first question I'm going to ask, and it's like asking why is the earth round or why does the sun shine? But how did Joe Battista become the man that he is today? Tell us your story.
By the grace of God, and because I grew up in a small town outside of Pittsburgh, where athletics was a big part of everybody's life. Growing up in Penn Hills, they actually won the state football championship this past year. Proud of the alma mater there. But I had loving parents. I was surrounded by great family. Lots of fun times with my cousins, my aunts and uncles. Lots of great friends. Again, blessed to grow up with tremendous friends. And I can't emphasize enough, and I do this in the book, the importance of selecting the right friends to be around as you're growing up. And for the young people out there that might be listening, or the parents that are listening, make sure that you got your kids surrounded by people that are going to make them better. And if they've got toxic relationships, you got to bite the bullet and do something about it. So that's I owe everything I am to other people. My wife is a gem. Every year at the end of hockey season, I would thank her for allowing me to prolong adolescence, allow me to go off and do my thing. And, while she was busy raising our kids, I was basically helping to raise other people's kids. So Heidi has been special. She's a Penn State grad, as am I. And I've got 3 wonderful children. 2 of them are gainfully employed. One works for Boston Scientific in medical device sales, and one works for a company called AppLovin, which is an internet media company out in Palo Alto, California. And I still got one at home that's a senior in high school. And then I got the greatest dog in the world, Barkley, named after a particular Penn State and current New York Giants football player. And as I said, Matt, it's family, it's friends, it's other people, and it's my faith that I think have allowed me to enjoy a terrific life full of all kinds of ups, downs, and everything in between, but a lot of adventure. And, I love the 2 dates and a dash that you've come up with. And I can tell you that for me, I hope that my dash, if it doesn't say anything other than this, I will have lived a good life. I want it to say he cared. And that's the most important thing to me, is to be a servant leader and to put other people first.
I think that's, first of all, tremendous. The fact that you've, as a coach, one of the greatest accolades any person can tell a coach is that, they impacted their life and that they meant something. And I've had, the privilege of having mentors and coaches and people that have helped to mold me throughout my life. And they, without a doubt, impacted me in such a positive way that it steered me in the direction that I am, and they continue to be impactful in my life. Do you still have connectivity with the kids that you coached?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Matter of fact, we just had alumni weekend here at Penn State, and my 1979 team that I was a player on was recognized at the game, alumni game, and then the Penn State game against Wisconsin, and so was the 1989 championship team that I coached. And then my wife and I hosted about 36 people, former players, their spouses, some family members came over. We did a tailgate reunion at my house to see how successful these guys have become. I'm talking CEOs, executive vice presidents, owners of companies, regional directors, national directors of sales. It does my heart proud to see how successful they become. And also to hear from them how their time as a Penn State hockey player helped mold them as a person and as a professional. And, again, none of us gets to where we are by ourselves. I was blessed to have my own, kitchen cabinet, as I like to call it, of mentors and coaches that over the years impacted me. And in my book, I talk a lot about the attitude of gratitude. And I say, tag, the attitude of gratitude. And every day you got to remember to tag somebody that made a difference in your life and reach out and say thank you to them before they're gone. And, I missed a couple early on, and that stung. And I've vowed that I'm not going to let that happen again, that I'm going to do everything I can to be, very deliberate and intentional about remembering to say thank you to people that made a difference in my life.
I think, that's a gigantic acknowledgement. I don't think many people take a look at their life in a macro way. They don't look at life and go, where have I been and how did I get here? And then look at the pieces of the puzzle and say, who was instrumental in getting me through this point and who was instrumental in getting me through this point? And then going back and saying thank you. I think people just sort of take for granted that they got to where they are. Yeah. And they forget that there's constantly outside involvement in your success or failures.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, I think that the important part of this, Matt, is to remember that, especially when we're going through those tough times and we're trying to grind it out, and every one of us goes through those times. And, you got to be willing to take a step back when you think things are dark and aren't going your way, And you've got to remember to count your blessings and look at the positive things that have gone on in your life, and you've got your health, and sometimes you just got to grind it out. And life is not always going to leave you happy. Life is tough. And I think that we have this fallacy that every day can be, Super Bowl Sunday and Stanley Cup award-winning day. And the reality is that most days are practice days when you're out working and doing laps and doing sprints and working on your skill development and your competencies. And, those days when you really get high adventure and the opportunity to have these great experiences, well, you work hard and that's the reward. And so I think that there's times when you find yourself in a little bit of a slump or a rut. Sometimes the best thing you do is go back and say, well, what am I thankful for? And who are those people I can reach back out to? And I think you'll be surprised at how many times you start to feel better. And the brain, we know more about the brain now than we did, in the entire, history of mankind, just in the last 10 years, what we're learning. And those endorphins get firing up, and you got those positive thoughts going, and good things can happen, and you can turn things around. And we've all been there. I know you have. I know I have. And I think sometimes looking in the mirror and being honest with yourself is where it all begins. My slogan on in my company, and it's right on the front cover of the book, is dream big, keep it real, and get it done. And, you got to have dreams. You got to have goals. You got to have a plan. Yeah, that plan's going to change, but you gotta have a plan, and then you adapt. But ultimately, it comes down to execution. And I think sometimes what happens to us when we do get in a rut is we find ourselves being a little bit paralyzed, and we're afraid to do something, afraid of what other people might think of us, etc. Hey, look, it's your life. Take charge of it. The only person ultimately that you have to be responsible to in my life, it's basically three people: my Lord, my wife, and the guy looking back at me in the mirror. And you can't lie to that person, and you got to be sure that you're growing every day and having a growth mindset.
Now, I have a practice that I do every day in order to ensure that I start my day in the proper mentality. And there's days that I don't feel like getting up and doing anything. I just don't feel like it. Some days are just shit. But I have to every day get myself out of that. And I try to make sure that I'm consistent in that. And I look in the mirror when I wake up in the morning and I'm about to brush my teeth, and I take a deep breath, and I look at myself and I say, how are you going to change the world today? And I ask myself that question. And I think about, as a police officer, I do have a little bit of a loaded opportunity because people are always in need, right? So it does help in that. But I try to think outside the box, not just, am I going to help somebody at work today on the job? I try to think of ways that I can positively impact somebody's life. Something as simple as, I know I'm going to be at Wawa 4 times that day. I'm going to hold the door 4 times for somebody until they say thank you. I'm going to do stupid stuff like that just forces me to be in a servant mentality where I'm looking to help someone else. And what do you do every day? What is your practice, your principle that you try to live by that helps put you in the right mindset every day?
Well, first of all, kudos to you for doing what you do, because that's starting off with those habits and having that affirmation right off the bat gets you off to a great start. If you're listening to crappy music, you're going to be in a crappy mood. I'm sorry, folks. That's the way it works. Put on some inspiring music. That's what I try to do. I have my playlists that I listen to. I might listen to a little local news, that sort of thing, just to make sure that I'm catching up on some things to get the day started. But the very first thing I do when I go into the shower is I have a prayer. That's right. It is on a suction cup right in where I see it every single day. And I say that prayer over and over every day. So it reminds me, all right, game on. I've crossed the line into the new day. It's time to make something good happen. Also, I write my goals down and I post them. Matter of fact, I just redid them this morning. Talk about good timing. So I have my goals actually written down and taped to my mirror. So when I'm brushing my teeth, I'm looking at my goals. So, again, I'm holding myself accountable as best I can. We all need coaches. We all need mentors. We need accountability partners. But that's how I start my day. It starts with a prayer. It starts with positive music. I want to hear uplifting music, motivational music. And then I have my coach's Bible that I got from the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And I always read the daily devotional from that. And that's how I get my day started.
That's awesome, man. I love hearing other people's daily routine that they do to try to get themselves ready. And you mentioned writing your goals down, and I'm more of a wing it kind of guy. And I mean, in my head, I've always have strategic plans, and I'm always planning. But I don't. If it's not on my phone, I don't do it. So everything's in my phone as far as my calendar goes. But my daughter,
it's the same as writing it down, though. You're putting it, where you can see it, right?
Right. So my daughter, though, and it's when you talked about posting your notes, and I remember my daughter was in 9th grade, and I've told this story a lot of times, but my daughter was, she doesn't come from gifted athletic stock. I'm a broken body. Like I'm not. I have zero natural talent. Everything I did achieve was through hard work. And growing up swimming, she never won anything. Like she never came in first, but she was always she looked like a good swimmer. Like she had really good form. She was graceful in the water. She just wasn't fast. And it wasn't until halfway through 9th grade that she came in first for the first time in her life ever. And, next week we're going to NCAAs for the third time, Division II NCAAs. But what I know that she did growing up, once she touched the wall for the first time, it ignited something inside of her. So she started to put sticky notes on her wall above her bed that had times and did make districts, make states, make all these goals that she had. And every year she would take them down as she achieved them and put them in a box. And whatever was left was her way of accounting. Okay, I didn't achieve everything I wanted to. Why did I not achieve that? And she would make the course correction. And the next year she ended up never having anything left on her wall. And it's because she was so driven. And she, to this day, she's a little anal in regards that she has every practice she's ever had since 9th grade in a journal. Every practice she's ever had. And that's 6 days a week for the last 7 years. And she does it so she knows on the year she was successful, what did that year look like on a day-to-day basis? So almost like a journal. Right. And it's just amazing that she did that on her own. I didn't tell her to do that. So it's just cool how you see how successful people, the processes and the practices that they go through, no different than an athlete playing hockey or swimmer or coach who's got to teach kids to have that built-in accountability in order to be successful.
I got to tell you, the players, when I coached, there was pushback. Guys didn't like that I made them write their goals down. I made them write their academic goals, their athletic goals, and their personal goals down. And I got to tell you, Matt, here's what a typical freshman's look like. I want to be the best student I can be. I want to be the best hockey player I can be. I want to be the best person I can be. And I would get it and write in red pen, no shit. I get it. I know that's what you want. We got to dig deeper than that. You got to probe, and you got to tell me how. You want to be a great student? How are you going to do it? You're struggling in math? Well, then be specific. I'm going to go get a tutor. I'm going to join a study group. I'm going to get with some people that are going to help me work on a specific part of my math skills. Maybe writing, might be study skills in general. I think we come up with excuses for a lot of things. And I hear that from, I'm just not a good student. Okay, well, if you keep saying you're not a good student, you're going to remain that. What are you going to do to improve as a student? Because we can all improve, all of us. We can never stop learning, especially in this technological age that we're in. We old dogs got to keep learning the new tricks. And I'm a big supporter, believe it or not, of using the digital age for education. I know there's a lot of people that are down on it, and I'm not going to be a hypocrite. In my book, I talk about doing a digital detox, but that's when you're trying to focus on something. You're listening to a lecture, you're reading a book, put the digital distraction devices aside. You can get to them later. Schedule time when you can go and catch up on your social media. Turn off the notifications. Why do you need to know that the Flyers just scored a goal? That the Phillies just signed Bryce Harper. That his jersey's now the number one selling. What does that really change your life? That you got to know it. You got to know it the first time it hits Twitter or Instagram or any of those things. Matter of fact, you have to be intentional about that. You have to control your technology and not let it control you. Now, having said that, to tell kids to get completely off of technology would be the equivalent of telling Henry Ford to get off his Model T and get back on his horse. You're just not being realistic. You're not being pragmatic. And I think that what we have to do with our young people is get them to understand that smartphone it's just a tool. Do not let it control your life. You need to control your technology. And I think one of the tricks of the trade is to just schedule in, say, okay, I'm going to look at my emails at a certain time. I'm going to look at my text messages at a certain time. Now, you're a police officer. It's a little different. You're a doctor. I get it. But for most of us, those text messages are not a matter of life and death. They're not so emergent that we have to deal with them right away. So I think we have to be more practical. Now, if it's some downtime, hey, so be it. I get that. But if you know you're trying to get your work done, you've crossed that line, you're supposed to be in that focused zone where you're present, well, then turn off your digital distraction devices. And I got to tell you, this is coming from somebody who had to learn that the hard way, because when all this first came out, type A personality, social person that I am, I was just addicted to it. And I reached a point where I literally got rid of all my social media. Found out real quick that doesn't work either. So it becomes intentional. It becomes deliberate. It gets back to you holding yourself accountable, having some other people help hold you accountable. I know God only knows my kids try to hold me accountable on this, and I'm doing better. I still got a long way to go. But I'll tell you what, to try to utilize technology for education, I think if we don't do that, then we're selling ourselves short. We should be using gamification to improve the way we teach. We can't teach in the Gutenberg revolution style, which we've been doing for way too long. We have to use this technology that we're using right now. We can reach so many more people by taking advantage of this. And I would encourage people to, again, utilize technology. Just make sure you're controlling it and then not letting it control you.
So we've in the last 22 minutes, we've unleashed Joe Battista in a way that I think is amazing. Your everything you said has been spot on, in my opinion, with everything. But somewhere that all this knowledge, this breadth of insight came from somewhere.
Right.
I know, we talked a little bit about the fact that, you were a hockey player in high school and in college, right?
Right.
You had a pretty unique story about your transition into elite hockey level, going from high school into college. You want to share that with us?
Yeah. I was one of those kids who really believed that I was going to play in the NHL. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and at a time when hockey just wasn't that big of a deal. But I, as a junior in high school, I won the Dapper Dan All-Star Classic Defensive MVP Award. And, you looked at the Round Ball Classic and the Wrestling Classic and baseball and all that. Any of those kids that won the Dapper Dan Awards for those things, they were getting college scholarships. A lot of them were going on to play pros. I just assumed the same thing was going to happen to me. When I met with my guidance counselor in high school, now keep in mind I had 1,300 kids in my graduating class. That's not in my whole high school. That was in my graduating class. So as well-intended as the guidance staff was, they had an impossible job. And I got to tell you, I am one of the biggest supporters of guidance counseling, and we don't give it enough credit. We don't give our guidance counselors enough support. If I were a parent, I'd be demanding that they do more to help our kids with their planning process. Sorry for that sidebar there. But so I go to meet with my guidance counselor, and basically it's, Joe, you're good at math and science. Your mother works at Westinghouse's nuclear division. You ever think about being an engineer and maybe being a nuclear engineer? And my very naive and immature response was something to the effect of, yeah, sure. Hey, when do we drop the puck? because I just wanted to go play hockey. And I arrived, I tried. I thought I was going to go to Notre Dame as a recruited walk-on. Things didn't work out at the last minute. Thank goodness my mother paid the housing deposit at Penn State, so I had a backup. She's a smart woman. And that led me to come to Penn State, where the rumor was that we were going to get this brand new ice arena and we were going to go Division I. This was 1978. Third day I'm on campus, the existing ice arena that they had, they take it, make it into an AstroTurf practice field for the football program and lacrosse and soccer and an indoor track. And the next thing you know, we're playing on a temporary outdoor rink where you had to flip a coin to see who had to skate into the wind. And there were plans for a new arena to be built, but it was a couple years down the road. And even when that building finally did become reality, it was at a time when the economy was in the tank. We were going through the oil crisis, and we literally ran out of money. Instead of it being a 5,000-seat arena, it became an 1,100-seat arena, and we remained club status. And so while I never realized my dream of playing Division I college hockey, I certainly never played pro hockey, it was the opportunity to be involved in the management of the hockey club at Penn State that led me to my first job when I left Penn State, and that was with the Pittsburgh Penguins in the NHL. And so I kind of got there. I just got there in a different way than I expected to. Probably one of the best things I did, Matt, when I was 21 years old, was I sat down and I did a strategic plan. I did a career map, and I wrote down what I thought I wanted to be and what it was going to take to get there. And I studied what other people who had reached the level of an athletic director, a Division I coach, a professional coach, a general manager, and said, okay, well, here's how they got there. So I know I've got to have some sort of a trajectory just like that, which meant I was probably going to have to go get a master's degree. I was probably going to have to move around and take coaching jobs. Well, I can look at that career map right now, and my goal of being an athletic director or being an NHL coach or GM, while I haven't, at least not yet, reached either one of those, I made it to associate athletic director at a Power 5 school here at Penn State, and I made it to a vice president's position with the Buffalo Sabres in the NHL. I came awfully close, which I think is pretty cool. And that's why I am a big fan that you have to have plans. You got to be ready to adjust. Most importantly, you got to be willing to roll up your shirt sleeves and go grind it out and do the things you got to do to learn all the competencies, the skills and knowledge that it takes to earn those positions.
So let's talk about Penn State first, because I mean, everybody, obviously we're a Pennsylvania families here, then everybody that's watching, at least the people that I know that are watching locally here, are Penn State fans. We're not Penguins fans, so we're not going to talk about your time with the Penguins.
I understand that.
But
we're fans.
But I mean, I'll root for the Sabres. I'll root for anybody but the Penguins. But so you're at Penn State, and obviously you graduated from Penn State. You know, you're a proud alumni. When you got asked to come back and be the associate athletic director and run the club program and coach and do all that stuff, how did that process happen? And was it, a lot of times you hear about alumni helping alumni, right? That Penn State is well known, just like Michigan, for opportunities coming through your association with your university.
Sure.
And I know Penn State's strong in that aspect. Was that something that really benefited you, being a graduate of Penn State?
I'll tell you that my job with the Penguins, that was partly because Coach Paterno wrote me a letter of recommendation. The president of the Penguins at that time was a gentleman named Paul Martha, who, if you recognize that name, played in the NFL for the Steelers and the Broncos, was an All-American at Pitt. And even though he didn't come to Penn State, I know that Coach Paterno had recruited him. He knew the Martha family very well. And so that was my foot in the door. A lot of people say they want to work in pro sports and college sports. And you'll hear this over and over again. Well, you got to know somebody. You got to have an in. And that is, to this day, there's a lot of truth to that. You still have to have the capabilities and the skills to do it. But even if you have that, sooner or later, something's going to happen to give you that edge, to differentiate you from other people. Well, that letter from Coach Paterno to Paul Martha was what really, really helped me get my foot in the door. And I started off in sales and marketing. And while I was there, I wrote a proposal and created a position for the director of amateur hockey development. I coached the junior Penguins, got bit by the coaching bug, and ended up leaving to go to Penn State University after working for the Penguins 3 years. Did a graduate assistantship out there, went to Culver Military Academy, which is in the middle of nowhere. Most people have never heard of it, but I will tell you that you will recognize some of the names of people who sent their kids there and went there themselves. The Gannett family that owns USA Today, the Lay family, Frito-Lay, okay, the Steinbrenner family that owns the Yankees. George went there. His kids all went there. It was paradise in the middle of Indiana, about 45 minutes away from South Bend and Notre Dame. And while I was there, I got contacted by the former, at that time was still the current director of club sports, Vance McCullough, who said, hey, we created a position for assistant director of the ice arena and the hockey coach and the summer hockey camp director. Would you be interested in applying for it? And I did it. And lo and behold, I fooled them all. And I got the job. And that was in 1987. I was all of 27 years old as a head coach. And boy, did I make a lot of mistakes those first couple of years. But I grew, the players grew around me. And the rest, as they say, is history. And then in 2006, I became the Nittany Lion Club director, and that essentially was an assistant athletic director's position. And after a few years of doing that, I helped bring in the Pagula gift, which was the largest single gift ever given to the university, $88 million, which eventually grew to $102 million. And we were able to build Pagula Ice Arena and raise the club hockey programs, men's and women's, up to Division I status. And I got to tell you, Matt, every day I drive by there, I just have a big smile on my face, knowing that we built this world-class facility. It's doing great. The facility's doing great. The teams are doing great. The men's program is making a profit. It's only the third Penn State sport that is a profit-producing sport that helps pay for some of the other sports. So we have a lot to be proud of.
I mean, first of all, I don't know how you convince anybody, even if you got it, to give up $88 million. I love a lot of things in my life. I have friends, I die for friends. I die for my family, but I wouldn't give a single red cent to most of them because I don't have it. But I sure shit wouldn't give $88 million to anything.
That just goes to show you what incredible people Terry and Kim Pagula are and the philanthropy that they provided. And by the way, it was not just me. There were an awful lot of people that were involved. I get more credit than I deserve for bringing in that gift because it was a whole team of us. Did I play a lead role? Absolutely. But, there were an awful lot of people behind the scenes that did as well, including our administration, our athletic director, the development staff, people in athletics that helped make that, and a lot of other people, a lot of friends, alumni that helped bring that together. But ultimately, it was because of Terry's passion for the sport of hockey and his passion for his alma mater, because he was a Penn State grad. And it was when those two things intersected, we talk about in the development world loyalty gifts. I graduated from XYZ college. I'm going to give it, some money every year. I might do a scholarship. Those are loyalty gifts. Passion gifts are transformational gifts. And that's what this was. Terry Pagula didn't want to just give a gift, and give some money and get his name on a scholarship. He wanted to do something that was going to literally transform his university, and he did. And it wasn't just the Division I hockey programs. That facility serves the entire state and region, for that matter. Tournaments, competitions, skating shows. That place is rocking all the time. And, it was a gift to the entire community. It wasn't just about hockey. Hockey's the biggest part of it, no doubt. But, again, and then the Pagulas, believe it or not, Matt, did the exact same thing up in New York. They gave $12 million to Kim's college, Houghton College, to build a student recreation center. And then they went up to Buffalo, and he's spent so much money up there, I can't even calculate it all, for basically saving the Sabres, saving the Bills from moving out of Buffalo. They put in Harbor Center, which is a $200 million facility. So if you haven't been up to Buffalo, by the way, you'll be blown away if you see that Harbor Center facility in Canal Side. None of that happens without the philanthropy and the vision and really the foresight of Kim and Terry Pagula.
All right, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I'm going to probably guess that your transition from Penn State to the Buffalo Sabres somehow may have been involved with that whole connectivity component.
Absolutely it was. I think Terry was impressed with the job that we did on the arena at Penn State. We got it done on time and on budget, which, those two words in, any type of government or public building, that's rare, as most people know. And, and I don't think we skimped at all. Matter of fact, we had enough money left over that we were able to go back afterwards and put a lot of the graphics that we kind of had cut out just to make sure we got the thing done on time and on budget. So, it's a good thing. I do think that, as I said before, so many people were a part of this. And I think, my relationship with Terry and Kim, our families became friends, our kids, my daughter and his one daughter are still great friends to this day. I just saw Terry. He was just here for the games against Wisconsin a couple weeks ago for alumni weekend, and great to see him. He's there and he takes this big group picture with all the alums, and he's got this smile from ear to ear. And that just, again, I'm looking at that and going, this is what makes it all so special. And, he gave me a big hug and said, hey, we really made something special happen here, didn't we? And that's a legacy. That's one of those things I'm going to be able to look back on my entire life. Good, bad things happen to me in the future. What we did here was pretty special.
So let's transition. First of all, that's amazing that happened and that you were instrumental in that. And I don't know what it would be like. I didn't even build my house. So I don't know what it would be like to have known that I helped architect, whether you laid a brick or nailed a nail or you coordinated the effort. It doesn't matter, but you helped to architect a transformational change at one of the most preeminent universities in the world. And I think that's pretty cool as shit.
Yeah.
And your journey didn't end there. You went on to Buffalo Sabres and you became the vice president there. And let's talk about it. I know people have an image of what pro sports is like, and they see the athletes, they see the coaches, they see the fine hotels and the jets and the money. But there's a lot of grunt work that goes on behind the scenes, especially in the administrative side. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, I think most people don't have a very good picture or a clue about what really goes on behind the scenes. They only see the finished product, on game night. And reality is there's so many moving parts and so many people behind the scenes, thousands of them, and that goes everything from the security guards at the arena, to the concessionaires, to the people that are doing the vendors that are selling the merchandise. It is a monumental undertaking. And then that doesn't even begin to get to the teams themselves, the structure they have in place with scouting and player development, the legal side of the business. There's just an awful lot of moving parts behind the scenes, and it's an awful lot of work. I tell you this, people that say they want to work in pro sports, I think one thing they better understand is that until you get to the highest positions, you're going to work crazy hours and you're not going to get paid a lot of money. because they don't have to pay people a lot of money at the lower entry level positions. And because they know that for every job that comes open, there's going to be 1,000 people trying to get it because everybody wants in. So if you're not willing to grind it out, if you're not willing to roll up your shirt sleeves, and I tell any kid that wants to be in, don't forget to start off in the minor leagues. Don't forget to start off at Division III instead of Division I if you want to go into the college world. Don't forget that there's lots of opportunities out there besides just being in the NBA, Major League Baseball, the NFL, Major League Soccer, etc. You can go to the minor leagues. There's obviously big programs going on across the ocean, and around the world these days. One of the guys that volunteered for me with the Hockey Management Association, his first job out of Penn State was with Professional Tennis Association. And then he ended up getting into merchandising at Georgia State University. Derek Lockbaum's his name, and eventually he ended up at North Carolina, and he started off with sports merchandising, and before you knew it, he was in charge of licensing, and I think he still is, for the entire school. Now, I guarantee you, he did not go into his first job thinking that's where he was going to end up. But how cool is that? A kid from here goes down, starts off at Georgia State. That's where he cuts his teeth, gets his opportunity at North Carolina, gets in sports, and then uses that and parlays it into a position even bigger with the whole university. That's pretty cool that things like that happen.
My nephew, Christopher, is working for the Flyers in ticket sales. And, that's a get business, man. When they were sucking at the beginning of the year, it's kind of hard to sell tickets. Kind of hard when there was nobody.
Hey, I worked for the Penguins. 3 years I worked for the Penguins. We finished dead last twice and next to last. So I feel his pain.
But he did very well, and he got promoted. So, they give you whatever, a little bit in the beginning, and then you go to a next level, and he gets a bigger piece of the section to sell. And he's doing really well. And he knows that, especially in hockey, I think more so than other sports, maybe I'm wrong, but it's very performers who stick and stay loyal to the brand of that team, they bring you up within. A lot of the guys that are executives now in the Flyers started in ticket sales.
Right.
And I think that's a pretty cool knowledge that you can work through the ranks. Yes. And earn your keep and create your own pathway if you have the patience and the perseverance and the loyalty and the hard work and the skill to perform and live that long, because obviously you're not getting a lot of money. You get bonuses and stuff like that on performance, but you're not getting a lot of base salary.
Well, I'll tell you, my book, it's The Power of Pragmatic Passion. Can I do the
whenever you're around, wait for you to throw it out there.
Right? Power of Pragmatic Passion. If you want to order it, by the way, go to my website at pragmaticpassion.com. And if you do that, you get an autographed copy of the book. If you put in the code PASSION5, you get $5 off the price of the book. Now, it's also available at Amazon and at a lot of the Barnes & Nobles. But if you want an autographed copy of the book, order it at pragmaticpassion.com. What I did was these 7 principles that I came up with, and this isn't revolutionary by any stretch of the imagination. There's not a lot of original content out there. We just are all packaging it based on our own experiences and what we've learned from others over the years. But I came up with an acronym, PASSION. And the P stands for purpose. The A stands for attitude. The first S is sacrifice. The second S is servant leadership. The I is inspiration. The O is options, for developing options. And the N is nurture, because we always have to keep nurturing ourselves and others. Well, to get back to what we were just talking about, if you want to go into professional sports, I don't care what level, scouting, coaching, management, the business side of it, the logistics side, it doesn't matter. If you're not willing to sacrifice, and I talk a lot about that in my book, the power of saying no to get to your yes. If this is really what you want, are you willing to say no, that I'm not going to do these other things over here that are taking my eye off the prize? And so that's in that whole section, the chapter about sacrifice. and, there's servant leadership. There's inspiration is all about who are your mentors, who are your coaches. And I believe there's a difference between these things. For the most part, I believe a mentor is somebody that is, an acquaintance that you get to know, somebody that you befriend or they befriend you, and they're walking you through things. A coach is somebody you hire to work on a specific skill. If you're struggling in the professional speaking ranks, you're going to go out and hire a speaking coach. If you're a writer and you're struggling, you're going to go out and find a writing coach. Look at what we do in youth sports, almost to the nth degree, and sometimes a little unrealistic, but we will hire, parents will hire coaches for their kids for speed, agility, strength, nutrition, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My only problem with any of that, Matt, is, are you doing the same thing for their study skills, for their math skills, for their English skills? To me, it gets back to the odds are still against you, that you're going to make it as a Division I athlete and earn a scholarship, and that you're going to play someday in the pros. And you know what? Even if you make it to the pros, I work for an organization called NAPSA, the National Athletic Professional Success Academy. Aaron Beasley, that's where I got to know Aaron. And, you look at even the players that play, the average career in a professional league across all sports, all genders, okay, is 3.2 years. Then what are you going to do? Okay, so even if you make it, you better take good care of your money, and you better be preparing for the inevitable day when you're going to be a former professional athlete.
Yeah.
I'll get off my high horse now.
No, it's all, I've been blessed and cursed at times to have worked in professional sports for the last 25 years as a bodyguard and working with the Maxwell Football Club and other, and growing up with some friends who played in pros in different sports. I know for a fact that the lifestyle is great when you're the player and you're making the money and everything is going great. But I know when the bottom falls out finally and you're forced to go out into the world and reacclimate and figure out what your life is going to be like, it's tough. And it's tough for everyone. I don't care who it is, unless you've got the business sense behind you year one,
right,
where you're planning your exit strategy and you're putting together your portfolio of investments, the businesses that you're opening a franchise of this here and investing in this company there and getting involved in your own management of your signature and your brand. If you're just playing a sport and collecting a paycheck, at some point in time that ends, you have no plan. Right. And I think in any part of life, whether you're an athlete or you're a student or you're in the band or whatever it is you do, you got to have a plan for when whatever it is you're passionate about is no longer a possibility. And what is the next level that you have to get to?
Well, and I'm a big believer in having plans, although you'll hear certain people say, well, let's quote that great philosopher, Mike Tyson. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the nose.
Yep.
And what they don't realize is Mike's not saying don't have a plan. What he's saying is you go in, you always have a plan, okay? But when it's not going the way you want it to, you got to adjust. There's a difference, and I talk about this in the book, between persistence and perseverance. Persistence taken to the nth degree can end up in great disappointment. You keep banging your head off the wall so many times, eventually you got to learn to take a step back, maybe 2 steps back, go around the wall and persevere. Okay. So I explain that in the book, that's my philosophy, that you have to be persistent. Yes. But you also have to reach a point where you have to keep it real. I'm never going to be an opera singer. I may stand up in the balcony on Sunday and sing with the best of them in my mind, but, I don't think they'll be booking me at the Met anytime soon. And so I've come to grips. I'm okay with the fact that I'm never going to be a professional opera singer. And that's a frustration I have when I hear guidance counselors, teachers mean well, but tell kids, you can be anything you want to be. I'm sorry, I'm a realist. That's the pragmatic part of pragmatic passion. You can be anything you want to be if you've got talent ability, work ethic, attitude, and you got to get a couple of breaks along the way too. Why is it that everybody believes that the only way that you are, quote, successful is if you have the biggest house, the fastest car, the nicest bling, the nicest wardrobe, etc.? To me, I do exercises, and that this is in the book, where I ask people, what really matters to you? You know, and I do the genie test, where you're given 3 wishes. Right now, Matt, boom, you got 30 seconds. Tell me, what are the top 3 wishes? I'm going to hold you. And here's what you get out of a lot of young people. They want a big house. They want a lot of money. They want more wishes. You know, those sorts of things. You talk to older people, and what you'll hear are things like, I want lifelong friends. I want my health. I want an insatiable curiosity to learn. Okay, and that's what matters. Because at the end of the day, as Denzel Washington says, you're never going to see a U-Haul behind a hearse. All right? You've got to be willing to deal with the fact that life is going to throw you lots of different things. Let's not always measure it by bank account and who lives in the fanciest house and that sort of thing. I know an awful lot, and I'm sure you do, especially having dealt with professional athletes. I know a lot of people that were celebrities and had lots of money that lived some of the most tragic personal lives. And for a lot of different reasons, you know, they succumb to, you know, the just excessive pride and excessive pleasure and excessive power, and it gets the best of them, and all of a sudden their life gets off the rails. And to me, it gets back to what matters to you. What matters most? What do you want? How do you want to be remembered? What are those 2 dates in the dash? Okay, and if all it is a big house and a fancy car and a lot of money in a bank account, I feel kind of sad, because I think there's so much more. And that's why the 4th chapter is called Servant Leadership, and it's all about being to serve before you can lead. And you got to be other-centered to have a successful, joyful, meaningful life.
Well, first of all, that was brilliant. I might have to cut that segment out and put it up somewhere. That was great. And I go back to our conversation we had last week on the text that you need to start a podcast, because that was that was really good. But back to the athlete. One of the things that I think we do a disservice to our youth, especially on the athlete side, when we don't let them fail. We don't let them recover and rise. And we're always telling them that they can. And I think what happens, especially with the elite of the elite, is that they've been pandered to and they've been catered to their entire lives, that they've never had to be told no. They've never had to fall and rise again in a lot of cases. And I think what happens is, just like you were talking about, the ones that achieve the highest level of success in sports, when it ends, that's like a gigantic sledgehammer. No, you can't do this anymore. And they don't know how to handle that. And I think, as a mentor to kids, and you as a mentor and coach to kids, and I think one of the things I always strive to do is I try to teach kids to understand that they have strengths and weaknesses. And if you spend more time working on your things that you are pretty good at or really good at, you're going to have a higher probability for success.
Amen.
And if you eliminate your weaknesses, the best of your ability, if you try to minimize the availability of weakness in your life, you're going to find success. But you have to acknowledge that you suck at shit.
Yes.
It's just real. You got to acknowledge that.
Keep it real. That's my whole premise behind the Power of Pragmatic Passion, is that pragmatic piece. Passion alone is not enough. We need to have passion. We need to be passionate about things. However, there has to be that pragmatic, practical, commonsensical part of it as well. And I couldn't agree with you more, Matt. I get frustrated when I think we're doing a lot of these kids a disservice as well. We tell them what to wear, what to eat. We provide them with what they're supposed to eat. We do everything for them. We get them tutors. We get them academic advisors. And then all of a sudden, when they transition out of the game and they can't even open up a checking account because somebody else did it for them. They don't understand paying taxes because somebody else was doing it for them, and they fall hard. And we see that. It's not just that emotional baggage that comes with sudden, 1 minute you were here and everybody wants to be with you, and the next minute you're yesterday's news. Suddenly in the NFL, it's really pronounced because most of those guys do not have guaranteed contracts. It's not like hockey and basketball and baseball where, if you get cut, you sign a 2-year deal, you're still getting paid. In the NFL, boom, you're done. Very few guaranteed contracts in NFL. So these guys literally, everybody looks at them and thinks, oh, they're just spoiled rich guys. That's not true. Most of them are not. Most of them are just like us, and they go through the same ups and downs, and they deal with the same levels of anxiety, depression, you name it. And to a certain extent, Matt, it's magnified because of where they were, and their perception is that they've dropped so far. And all we try to do with NAPSA, and I give Brad Mitchell, our CEO, has just amazing staff around him, put together this team of people. And, we care about individuals, we care about people. We want to see people succeed. And like Brad says, it's all about, they've got hidden competencies as athletes they don't even realize they have. Right. And so what we're trying to do is say, okay, you were a football player. You can look at those playbooks and learn a new, game plan every week for how many weeks in a row. You've got some abilities that you're not getting academic credit for. So you should have the confidence to go out and be able to transition into the real world. But sometimes you just need a coach. You need somebody helping you to figure out what that path looks like. And that's what we try to do with APSA.
So we got about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes left in the show. I want people to, first of all, know that on top of all the amazing things you've done in your life and the coaching you've done in the hockey world that you've lived your entire life pretty much, you're the author of the book, Pragmatic Passion, but you're also a pretty accomplished speaker. And that's part of what you do today as a profession. Let's talk about how do people find out how to get a hold of you, how to book you as for speaking gigs, your core competency and what you talk about with speaking. Let's spend the last 1.5, 2 minutes talking about that.
You bet. Well, the best way to get in touch with me is to go to pragmaticpassion.com. All my contact information is there. That's my website. If you want to email me directly, I'm fine with that. It's joe@pragmaticpassion.com. And if you want to call me, here's my number. You ready? Get your pens out. 716-261-8059. Earlier this morning, I did a 3-hour workshop for a local company here, Collegiate Pride. Had a blast with their staff. It was very engaging. I think that they learned something both professionally and personally, some growth-minded philosophies, and we did a bunch of exercises, and we had fun. And that's what I try to do. I'm not in this because I think I'm going to be this nationally known speaker. If that happens, it'll happen organically. What drives me, my passion is to help other people. And if I can do that, that's what I want my legacy to be. I've said before, my 2 dates in my dash, I want my dash to say he cared. So,
and I love that. I was on a podcast yesterday where they asked me what my legacy was going to be. And I told the story about how when my brother was alive, he didn't have anybody call our house and ask him to come out and play or have a sleepover or be invited to a birthday party. But every summer he worked at a camp, and I never went to this camp. And he was a family friend that ran it, and he did odds and ends, cut grass. And when he died, over 1,000 people came to his funeral. And I couldn't come to terms with who these people were because I didn't know them because I wasn't part of his world there. And I didn't realize that the brother I had such an impact in the world during the 21 years that he was alive. And it wasn't until many years later that I realized who all these people were when I wrote the book, and they were calling me, telling me they named their kids after my brother, and they built a gymnasium and named it after my brother at this camp. And I thought to myself, who the hell was this guy? Because the one I was protecting every day because he needed me. But I realized they didn't need me at all.
Right.
At least not in the totality that I thought. So when someone asks me what my legacy is going to be, I want to be remembered in the same way that my brother was, so that when I'm gone, I don't want my name to ever not be uttered by somebody. I did a speaking event a couple weeks ago, about a month ago, and the CEO of this company said that you die twice. Once when they put you in the ground, and the second time when your name is uttered for the last time. And I don't ever want the second one to ever happen. And I think that, with that's why we're connected. That's why we're friends, is because we have the same passion. We're not trying to be the next Tony Robbins or the next Stephen King. We're just trying to go out and make an impact in the world, and do so with some morals, some ethics, some passion and purpose. And that's why I appreciate you. And I'm thankful that you came on the show, and I'm glad we made another Wednesday, second episode of the week. I'm having fun with this, and I really do think you should start a podcast. So when you're ready, you let me know, and then I'll be a guest on your show.
You absolutely will be. And thank you, Matt, for all that you're doing. I know I got you means a lot. And, that's your mantra. I got you. I know you have other people's backs. That's what drew me to you. We share that. We've got that kindred spirit, a passion for helping other people. And thanks for having me on the podcast. And I look forward to continuing our friendship.
Absolutely. So everybody, thank you again for listening to another episode of the Two Dates in the Dash podcast. I'm your host, Matt Cubbler. My special guest was, once again, the incomparable Joe Battista. Everybody go out and enjoy your lives. Live with purpose, live with intention, and for God's sakes, be kind to one another. Have a good night.